The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Zexthar of the Vryn Dominion raised his crystalline appendage. The holographic star map flickered, displaying the contested border systems between the Vryn and the Catharak hegemony. The Council recognizes Ambassador Zexthar, announced High Arbiter Morwen, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with authority. Honored members, Zexthar began, his translator rendering his chittering into universal standard. The Catharak expansion into Sector 447 violates the Treaty of... We claim what was abandoned, interrupted Catharak War Chief Drokan, his 6 eyes blazing with defiance. Those worlds have been empty for 3 centuries. Salvage rights apply. Zexthar's carapace flushed deep violet with rage. You wouldn't dare touch those systems if they were still around. The chamber erupted. Delegates from 100 worlds began shouting simultaneously, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping protests and accusations. But one word cut through the noise, whispered by the elder delegates, causing the younger ones to pause in confusion. Humans. High Arbiter Morwen struck her resonance gong, the deep tone forcing silence. That word is forbidden in these chambers. The erasure protocols— Damn the protocols! Zexthar slammed his appendage against his podium. We all know the truth. Those worlds in Sector 447 were theirs. The ruins, the weapons caches, the automated defense platforms that still make our warships flee. We erased them from every database, every historical record, every language primer, but we cannot erase the fear. A young delegate from the Spiral Confederacy, barely 2 decades old, raised a tentacle. Forgive my ignorance, but what is a human? I've never encountered this term. The elder delegates exchanged glances. It was Ambassador Kier of the Selenar Collective who finally spoke, her voice heavy with memory. 300 years ago, the Galactic Council encountered a species from a small yellow star. They called themselves humanity. They were unremarkable at first glance. Soft-skinned, short-lived, no natural weapons or armor. Their technology was centuries behind ours. Then why, the young delegate began? Because they refused to stay behind, Kier continued, her gaze distant. Every species in this council evolved on worlds where they were apex predators. We climbed to the top of our food chains through strength, venom, or cunning. But humans? They were prey animals who became predators through sheer bloody-minded persistence. Drokan snorted. Fairy tales to frighten hatchlings. Is it? Zexthar's voice was quiet now, dangerous. Then explain the Scar of Proxima. Explain why an entire Vryn battle fleet of 200 vessels simply vanished near their homeworld. Explain why the wreckage we found was torn apart from the inside. The official records say— The official records are lies. Zexthar's composure shattered. We wrote them ourselves. The truth is that humans boarded our ships. Without spacesuits, they used emergency airlocks as weapons, venting themselves into space just to breach our hulls. They died by the thousands but kept coming. They turned our own ships against us. And when it was over, only 3 vessels escaped to tell the tale. The young delegate's chromatophores paled. That's insane. Yes, Kier agreed softly. That's what made them terrifying. Every species has a breaking point where self-preservation overrides objectives. Humans didn't. They had a concept they called scorched earth. If they couldn't win, they ensured their enemy couldn't either. Dozens of worlds burned rather than surrender. So what happened to them? Another young delegate asked. If they were so formidable, why aren't they here? The chamber fell deathly quiet. Finally, High Arbiter Morwen spoke, her luminescence dimming with something that looked like shame. We destroyed them. All of us together. A coalition of 53 empires coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history. We glassed their colonies, poisoned their worlds, hunted them to extinction. It took 40 years and cost us millions of ships and trillions of lives. And even then... She paused, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. Even then, we're not entirely sure we got them all. That's absurd. Drokan scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Zexthar pulled up a classified file, bypassing security protocols with his council authority. Look at these incidents. Every decade, ships disappear in the old human territories. Colonies report strange sightings. Automated messages in their language still broadcast from dead worlds. And most disturbing, Children's stories across the galaxy, species that never met each other, all share tales of the returning ones who will judge us. Coincidence and paranoia, Drokan insisted. Perhaps Morwen conceded. That's why we implemented the erasure protocols. We deleted them from history, hoping that in time the fear would fade, that their legend would die with those who remembered them. But it hasn't, Kier said, because deep down we all know the truth. Humans didn't become dominant through superiority. They did it through spite, through the absolute refusal to accept defeat, through the ability to turn every loss into a lesson, every setback into motivation. They were the only species that viewed peace as merely the gap between wars and every war as a chance to evolve. The young delegate was trembling now. But they're gone. You said you destroyed them all. We said we tried, Sexathar corrected. The difference matters. As if summoned by their words, the chamber's lights flickered. A priority signal interrupted the proceedings, a distress call from the Catharic border fleet near Sector 447. The message was fragmentary, corrupted, but 3 words came through clearly. They're still here. Then nothing but static. Drokan's 6 eyes widened in primal terror. Around the chamber, delegates who had lived through the human wars began quietly securing their emergency evacuation protocols. The young ones looked confused, frightened by the sudden change in their elder's demeanor. High Arbiter Morwen stared at the dead communication link, her bioluminescence flickering in patterns that spoke of ancient, buried horror. "Emergency session adjourned," she announced, her voice steady despite the fear. "All delegates are advised to return to their homeworlds immediately." As the chamber emptied in barely controlled panic, Ambassador Kier remained staring at the star map where Sector 447 glowed ominously. She whispered into the empty chamber, a prayer or perhaps a plea. "We erased you from our records, but we could never erase you from our nightmares. If you're truly still out there, humanity, please remember that some of us voted against the war. Some of us tried to stop it." The lights flickered once more, and in that brief moment of darkness she could have sworn she heard something. Not words exactly, more like an echo of something that used to exist, a reminder that you can erase a species from history, but you cannot erase the consequences of your actions. And in the darkness of space near the ruins of a world once called Earth, a single automated beacon continued its 300-year broadcast. "We are humanity. We forgive nothing. We forget nothing. We will return." The message had been playing on loop since the last human died, or so the Galactic Council hoped.